Did you hear that?
Hey everybody, this is James. This is some evidence, some of the EVPs and evidence that we captured at the Jed Johnson Tower investigation. Posted that video last week. Now I have to admit, some of this is not the greatest. We didn't get a whole lot. There's at least one of these. The first one I'm going to play, as a matter of fact. I'm really playing it just so Amy and Laney can hear it and tell me if there's anything to it or not, which I'll get to that in a minute. But I'll put it to you this way, probably about half of this, if this were for a client, I probably would not present it to them as evidence. But, you know, just to show you some of the things that we may have captured, I'm going to go ahead and play it for you guys, so you can just kind of decide for yourself. Of course, that's the way any of this is you just decide for yourself. I'm going to play stuff from the voice recorder. We only got a couple of things from the voice recorder. One thing about that is, and this is my mistake, the wind was blowing really hard that day. And of course, we were in an elevated place, and so the wind was that much harder. And as I'm sitting there watching the video, as I'm putting together the video, I'm saying to myself, why did you put the voice recorder that close to the side? Because we got around on the one side of the tower where the wind was not blowing as hard. And of course, like an idiot, I put the voice recorder kind of close to the side. But, you know, oh well. Like I say, as it was, it wasn't too terribly bad. But even, you know, even as it was, most of what we got, it just wasn't that great. But we did get a couple of pretty good ones. Okay, so this first thing, of course, it's open to the public, and there were several people walking around at various points. And usually when other people walked around, I'd just kind of back off and wait until they left, because I didn't want to be sitting there later wondering, okay, was that a voice that we heard from somewhere else? Was that somebody playing with their kids? Was that somebody walking their dog? I just waited until they left. Some people had walked up there. They were walking their little dog. I was off to the side shooting quote-unquote B-roll. And Amy and Laney were still over there. And you'll hear, and this, well, let me go ahead and, this is something off the voice recorder. I was off to the side, so I was not there by it, so I don't know exactly what was said. I have no video reference for it or anything like that. It just sounds odd. So let me go ahead and play this.
Don't forget silently after, and then uphold.
And then uphold.
Oh, that one looks at Callie, Mom.
No.
That one looks at. That one looks at. That one looks.
They were talking about the app that Laney had brought up the word uphold. And they were talking about that. And I take it somebody's little dog come running up. And I thought, when I first heard it, I thought, well, that's just Laney kind of playing with the dog or talking to the dog. But if you listen to it there, Laney almost talks over the top of it. I think kind of does. It just kind of had this odd sound to it, but I can't say for sure, because I was standing off to the side. I have no other reference for it. Maybe they can tell me if that's Laney, if that's something else. I don't know. It does sound like something. It does sound like something saying doggy, something about a doggy. But I don't know if that's just Laney, baby talking to the dog, or something else. Like I say, I wouldn't. As I listened to it again, it kind of sounds like Laney talks over the top of the very end of it a little bit. So obviously she couldn't be talking over the top of herself. So, but they'll have to comment on that one and let me know. All right, this next one is not long after I turned the voice recorder on. It was only a couple of minutes after I turned it on. Of course, we got on that one side of the tower where the wind was blocking us. And well, let's say again, we'll just go ahead and play this clip.
What was that?
Okay, now that was a knocking sound that, as you could hear, Laney heard at the time. And it just sounded like a quick knocking on the rocks. Don't know of anything that the wind could have been blowing around that could have created that noise, and it sounded like a knocking on the outside. Just a tapping on the outside of the tower on those rocks. So I don't think me or Amy heard it at the time. Of course, Laney was standing right there by the voice recorder when that happened, so maybe it was something that just picked up kind of lightly to the ear, but picked up well on the voice recorder. So that was a pretty good one. Okay, now the rest of these are going to be video. This first one, again, not long after we had got there. I think this would have been, in fact, this was probably just a few seconds, maybe a minute or so after that, after the tapping that picked up on the voice recorder. We get this.
We also heard that you make a screaming sound.
As you can see, as you can hear, Amy was saying something about the woman that that reportedly drowned in that lake, making a screaming sound. And there's some kind of noise, some kind of voice or humming. And I recall at the time, I think we all heard it. And you can see Laney kind of react, but it wasn't that prominent when we heard it. It was very faint, a lot shorter. This seemed to pick up a lot more, at least a lot more than what I heard at the time. If it's a voice, it's not clear enough to make out any words or anything, but there does seem to be something there. Again, what that is, kind of hard to say, but we did pick up something. Alright, now this next one was a couple of minutes later. This is one of those that if this was for a client, I probably wouldn't even present it, but I'm going to go ahead and show it. There's no reason to play it 3 times. If you watch the whole video, then you didn't miss it anyway, but we'll go ahead and play this.
No. Oh!
And Laney was drinking that Mountain Dew Black Label there. She had just a little bit left, and she went ahead and reported it because I wanted to have something to kind of set up there to see if they could knock it over. But as soon as I got the can, I realized, well, that's going to be really way too light. This wind's blowing too hard. Got it as close to the middle of that wall as I could. But the fact that the wind was blowing so hard, it did kind of swirl around. It could have been the wind that knocked it off. It is interesting that it seemed to happen as Laney asked them if they could touch the can. But the fact of the matter is, you can't really consider it evidence just because, like I said, the wind was just blowing too hard that day. It could have been somebody there knocking it over, but it could also have been the wind. But there was the can anyway. All right, now this one here is this is a good bit later. I'll tell you what, I'll just go ahead and play it. I don't remember exactly when this was. Go ahead and play it, and then I'll come back to it. If you're asking what year it is, the year is 2018. Okay, now I remember. Some certain words would come up on that device, and thought it was interesting that the word year came up. Well, I sometimes it just kind of is a little bit of guesswork to it. I made the assumption they were asking what year it was, and so when I said 2018, there was that. It almost sounded like a crying, or like or some kind of surprised reaction or something. You could, it's not really debunking it, but could have been the wind whistling, something like that. Kind of interesting. We didn't, I don't recall hearing that same noise like that at any other time. We were getting some interesting words coming up. Like I say, it asked the year, when Amy asked the age, we would get 80. So maybe they were asking what year it was so they would know how old they were, or something. I don't know, but it just found it interesting. It sounded like a little crying noise. Maybe it's something, maybe it's not. Okay, and then finally we've got the best of the bunch, in my opinion. The tapping, the knocking on the voice recorder, that was pretty good too. The first video clip was not bad. But this one, I think, is probably the best one. So this is just literally right before we left. That's the wall that we're by. Okay, Amy had gone around and sat at the door for a good while, but before we left, I wanted to make sure I at least got some shots of the inside of the tower, since you can't actually get into the tower anymore. It was kind of a tight fit. You could hear that kind of crackling sound. That's actually my camera rubbing on the door, because the slit was not quite wide enough to get the camera in there. But then there is definitely some kind of voice, and you could even hear it echo. Something came from inside that tower. It's tough to tell if it was a male voice, female voice, but you can tell. It's pretty obvious that it is coming from inside, though. And like I say, it was just a few minutes late after that we went ahead and left. But I felt that was the best one. That was. There's really no doubting that you can't get into the tower, so nobody was in there. But there seemed to be some kind of voice that came from in the tower. Okay, well that's it. I say some of those were not that great, but that's just kind of the way it goes. That's the thing. You can't turn this stuff on and off. Sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a lot of great stuff. Sometimes you get a couple of little morsels. So this time it was a couple of little morsels and a couple of big question marks. But that's what we picked up at Jed Johnson Tower. Of course, we've still got more coming from that trip. We've got both of myself and What the Paranormal have videos coming up on Jed Johnson Dam, and some other stuff, non-paranormal stuff that will be coming out later. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. If this is your first time here, check out the channels, check out the playlist. If you want more paranormal videos, we've got a paranormal playlist up. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.